Greetings, everyone. The other piece of information relates to missions and values. And again, I already mentioned that Marriott's website actually has mission, value, philosophy, and history all on one page, all linked together. But we need to understand the missions, values, and belief of the organization you're writing the plan for. Now, most of you will walk into an organization. You won't be able to find this on their website necessarily. You can probably get a sense, though, of what they believe and value. So that's an important piece, and that's why we've already looked at what the world says about them, the competitors, and you've looked at their website already. So you have a sense of what it is, or for some of you, you're working for that organization today, so you would even understand more than an outsider would, certainly. But most organizations in our field, unfortunately, don't have a documented mission statement, value statement, beliefs, etc. But they all have one. So you might be working with a marketing plan right now, or an agency, writing their marketing plan, and you went, I'm going to go look for their mission statement. You go look for it. You can't find it anywhere. So then you ask the organization, what is your mission statement? And the organization can't tell you what it is because they don't have a documented mission statement. Even though it was the hottest thing 15 years ago to have one, not all organizations do. But they do all really have one. They just haven't documented it and have clearly identified what those values and beliefs are. But they exist. So if an organization you're working with does not have those documented, your job is to describe what you think their values and beliefs are based on all of the homework and interviews and understanding you have from the organization. So Marriott's mission is listed here. You can look at several student samples of marketing plans and you'll see how they've put that in. If you end up writing the mission value statement that is only based on your belief and understanding and your interview, but it isn't documented, you just need to indicate that this is your personal review, of that. Please know that it's not uncommon. We may teach things theoretically in a management class that says you need to have a mission statement, and know that many organizations do not. That's the reason we're doing a real marketing plan here too. So you see theoretically this should exist. It may not in a formal format. So your job is to help them move to the value of this theoretical framework and move closer to that direction. Again, we have a gap here. This is what we think market planning should be theoretically because of very strong, profound reasons. This might be where our industry is, and our job this semester is to move this closer. So missions, values, and beliefs, find out what your organization has in those areas. Business objectives, again, incredibly important thing, but what is and what does this organization want to do? So what overall objectives does your organization have for this next year? Now, in our perfect world, they would have their strategic plan completed for 10 years, 5 years, this year, and we would know very specifically. And for about half of you, you'll find your organization has documented objectives for the year that are based on a longer term vision. Again, a theoretical construct we know is that strategic planning process with those long-term objectives and then this year. But half of you won't. You'll ask the organ, you can't find them anywhere, and they probably aren't publicized on their website in this case. That's internal confidential information. But if you're working there, you're like, I don't even know what our objectives are. They typically would relate to financial objectives, profitability objectives, number of people served in a nonprofit objectives. It might be objectives related to capital improvements or larger funding bases, fundraising efforts. So again, a whole variety of things. Might be employee retention, less employee turnover. Sometimes a goal might be listed, their goals for the year. An objective would be more measurable, so we would have an idea of, not just improving customer service, but maybe they want to move their customer service scores from 92% to 93% on TripAdvisor, as an example. So some are going to be goal-oriented, some very objective-oriented. Our goal is to find out what they have documented, what they believe to be their focus for the year, and if they're in that other half that don't have them documented, then you need to again interview the organization and ask them, Well, even if you don't have them documented, what would you say the things you're working on this year? What things are a priority for you? Where are you putting your emphasis? Those are the types of questions you would ask. What I never want to happen in our process of writing a marketing plan for this organization is to make them feel less because they don't have these things documented. What we want to do is give them an opportunity to help them get them documented. We know based on research, we know based on everything ever been published about the power of objective and goal setting is that it works. If we set an objective, document it, tell others about it, right, and work toward that, we will more likely achieve it than if we have this loosey-goosey, obscure kind of thought. We kind of know it, but I don't want to share it because I don't want to commit. I don't want to really put myself out there kind of idea. You will less likely achieve that than you will if you say, I'm going to move my customer service scores from 92% to 93%. We're going to reduce employee turnover from 50% to 40%, right? We're going to achieve higher revenue this year by $100,000, and we're going to turn that into even more profit than typical, and we're going to have a profitability improvement by X%. That is going to help us stay focused, stay in target, and most importantly, that is critical insight for us in market planning. Knowing that an organization wants to serve more people and have less employee turnover or have more revenue completely will impact the decisions we make. And if we don't understand an organization's overall objectives, we're going to make a bunch of decisions that may or may not be helpful, and it'll be a crapshoot. And we don't want that to happen. We want to be more strategic. So recognize in these three first areas, organizations may or may not have formally outlined their history, their mission, values, beliefs, and their objectives. They may not be documented. So if they're not, you need to have an interview with your organization that asks them those thoughtful questions because they're thinking them. They just probably haven't documented them. So either case, you should not have a blank in your marketing plan. There should be some insight, whether it's your insight or it's actually documented from the agency. And critical insight though. We won't write a marketing plan without it because we need it. Then we certainly want to understand the organizational chart or how the organization is set up. So again, the sample I just gave you in our intro section this week showed a small organization of MSIA, the Snow Sport Industry Association for Michigan. So in this case, again, many organizations will not have a documented organizational chart. Theoretically, here's what one looks like on the PowerPoint that's provided. If it doesn't exist, your job is to create one for them and give them a snapshot of how that organization hierarchy is. Remember from chapter 1, we saw how market planning sits in a traditional organizational chart. Well, we need to understand again, not only where marketing is, but how this whole organization is set up, who their executive committee staff is, how they filter their organization. We know, I hope from your management classes too, that organizations are set up a lot of different ways. This might be inverted, where this is totally flipped over and customers are at the top of the organizational chart because philosophically those organizations believe that customers come first. Right? The last person at the bottom is the owner or the general manager, operator, board, whoever that might be. And those organizations are sharing in this organizational chart their philosophy and their beliefs. Other organizations kind of have that 360 process where they're circular in nature and everyone's kind of on an equal playing field and we all interrelate and connect. Those organizations are also sharing a message about what they value, the sense of team, the sense of sharing, the sense of we're all in it together kind of idea. So you can learn a lot from an organizational chart, not just hierarchy, not just communication channels. You learn about leadership, you learn about philosophy, and if they don't have one, again, lots of templates exist on Microsoft Word even. You can do an organizational chart template, but you'll need to do that and fill that in for them. Or you're going to snip it, cut and paste, right, existing ones that exist, and put that into your marketing plan. Keep in mind, anytime you put anything into the marketing plan, you need to explain it also. Don't just throw a table into it or a picture of an organizational chart like here without explaining what this organizational chart really represents and means. How many employees are represented in that organizational chart? I really have no idea because we may have, 13 front desk workers that are only represented with one little box or icon. So we want to make sure anything we put into this marketing plan is thoroughly explained. It needs to be a standalone document. You will not be there to explain this to everyone, so you need to explain what you're putting in and why. So far, 4 little pieces of the organization that are critical to our foundational understanding of what's this organization all about. Further, there are some other things. One is we want a complete list of their offerings, and we call that their products, their programs, facilities, services, the PPFS, and I'd also say policies. But you can look at past sample plans and see a listing, but we want one place that has an inventory, complete inventory of everything this organization offers and what their policies are. Some of this you may have gathered from your competitive assessment already because you would have looked at those things. But here we want better detail and it well organized in really those 4 or 5 categories: products, programs, facilities, services, policies. So when you look at that list, give as much as you can. Look at past samples if you'd like as well. I should highlight, again, once I'm working with organizations, real life, I make them do this too. And every once in a while, that golf course again rolled their eyes at me, if you can believe it. And they were like, really? We're going to spend time outlining? And I'll do a flip chart exercise. We'll go, okay, let's list all our products. Let's list all our policies. Let's list all our facilities, all our services. And the reason we do that is so we're on the same page as we're writing this marketing plan. What are all of the tools I have available to me to communicate? And if I don't understand we do certain things, like in this golf course's example, we had employees who were sitting around the table writing the marketing plan that didn't realize they had offered a bag drop service on the weekends. And these employees were primarily weekday employees, and they looked and they said, what? We're doing bag drop service? I didn't know that. Well, there's an opportunity again as an organization, because if we're not all clear and connected on all of the things we offer to employees, that we offer to consumers, that we offer to stakeholders, whoever, then we are sharing inaccurate information, we're not being consistent, and we're losing opportunities to really be as strong as we can. So in this section, while we're gathering all this information, we're really looking at competitive advantages. What about us makes us unique, special? What's our why? Why are we in this business? How are we delivering this experience differently, more effectively than our competition? And then our job in marketing communication is to go share that with people. So we're trying to build that SWOT analysis to understand really what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are. So if we do offer bag drop service and nobody else is doing that, that is a competitive advantage. But if internally we don't even know we're doing it to each other, we got a real problem in terms of communication there too. So it is really an important step to document what those things are, to make sure we're all on the same page. We all know what we have available in this organization that gives us power and strength, or the areas that we're weak at. Secondly, in this marketing plan, in this subsection of organizational assessment, we need to understand as much about the financial status of this organization as we can. Now, I talk about it in the textbook in more detail in terms of financial understanding, but I can't put enough emphasis on how important this is. I've given you past examples and other PowerPoints of understanding, again, the trends and business patterns. So go back to the Shepler's ferry boat and knowing that their morning boats were more empty than their noontime boats. So I need to do something about those morning boats and filling those times, not the one that's at 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock that is readily full of visitors already. My job is to understand where are there opportunities in this business or organization to make a better difference. So I need to understand patterns, trends, issues related to their financial status. Now, what I do know are organizations, especially privately held organizations, are going to be very hesitant about sharing their financial status with you, and that's okay. Know that even though you're hopefully partnering with them, if they don't want to share their financial insight, they don't need to. But what I would ask of them in this section is to give you some conclusions about what they know about their financial status. Have they been profitable this past year or the past years? Has there been ebb and flow overall with revenue, participation, with profitability over the past few years. What kinds of patterns in terms of day of week in terms of when visitors come, time of day. What do we know about opportunities or holes? What are their strongest days? What are their weakest days, months of the year, etc. So as many things we can find out, as shared even in Chapter 5, about the organizational business patterns, the more and more effective we're going to be as marketers. So I don't need, for your plan, you don't really need a copy of a financial statement. You don't need a copy of what their confidential information is. What you do need to understand are any conclusions that they would make from that data. And I go back to, perfect example was internal market research that existed in organizations that could help me better help them in terms of comparing data across time. And one was revenue pattern data that I actually put in the textbook for a fitness center, and revenue data over time by month of year. And quickly in one table you can ascertain that there were some months of the year, like January, that were incredibly busier than July. And that makes some intuitive sense in the fitness industry where New Year's resolutions, right, would impact that. But also marketing communication might impact that. Maybe we did a promotion, etc., in January to help leverage higher demand times, which makes a lot of sense to do that. But why in this organization's case was July really busy one year? What did the heck happen in July 4 years ago that their revenue that month was incredibly better? And so by looking and isolating that alone, we could figure out what's the story there. Because, gosh, I'd like that to happen again for this organization. If that's one of their objectives, is to increase revenue, then they took a traditionally incredibly slow month in the fitness industry and a slow month for them over the past many years. And they did something. Well, now we're 4 years later. Those staff people are gone, and we've lost all that history, information, and insight about that pattern, unless by chance someone here in the organization, has that insight, because it wasn't documented. I took year after year worksheet and put it into one table to see the pattern that was probably missed in that business intelligence kind of idea. So know that our whole goal here is not to have confidential information shared by any means. It's to pull patterns, trends, issues related to financial performance. And financial status means number of people, right? Number of amount of money. It means lots of issues about patterns of business, slow times, busy times, etc. So your organization may have internal data, like I've experienced in every organization I've ever worked with, laying around. Data that they could answer that question about business patterns, but they have never pulled it together. So if they're willing, pull it together for them. You could take 10 reports of 10 different Januaries and put that together in a table for them in a short amount of time, and it might tell a story to you that would make a difference in this marketing plan. Know that we have internal market research laying around organizations every day that is not being utilized. The data exists already as a part of doing business. Whether we've chose to use it or not is a different story. So if by chance you need help or support with this section, you need to let me know. And if the organization has data around that we can help pull together for them, all the better. I can give you example after example. Every organization I've worked with had data laying around not being utilized, that once we looked at it, it provided some insight that proved to be helpful. So enough of that for now. So no, we're looking. We might create tables or charts and help them with that, but we need to do that. Kind of the last big area that you need to gather about the organization is about their past marketing efforts. This tends to be, in past student plans, a harder area to gather, which is always interesting to me that it is. Some reason for that is the organization never kept any records on what they did or what they're currently doing even. They don't have a marketing plan, so they don't even have it documented what they're working on. But they also don't keep samples of what they've done in the past, which is a big no-no in marketing. So make sure You keep an example of everything that gets published, posted, utilized, and you keep that file folder, if nothing else, of last year's marketing activities and efforts. So some of this might be online still because we're looking really at this last year. What have they been doing this last year to communicate tactically with public relations efforts, with advertisements, with coupons, with anything they're using to communicate what they're doing. So we want to utilize that snipping tool again here if you have samples of what they've done. So the website is certainly one of those things. Their Facebook page, their Twitter page, right? All of those things should be snippets, copied and put into your marketing plan in this section. Here's currently what they're using and doing, okay? But it might be a big billboard. And so again, if we can get a sample of that, and again, sometimes just a Google search of the organization's marketing practices, efforts, and looking at it that way, might find some good images or materials of samples of what they've done. That's how I found as simple as that Pure Michigan campaign about the Wisconsin-Michigan mitten issue, right? It was simply a Google search, and I found all this stuff that was evidence of their marketing practice and their marketing outcomes. So learn as much as you can. Again, if you look at the sample questions I've provided, for these sections, I give you questions you can ask the organization to help you understand the ultimate outcome. So I want to learn about their past marketing efforts. I've given you a whole bunch of questions you could ask them to help you understand those answers. It might be even their Google Analytics about their website or their Facebook, but anything that gives examples of proof of what's worked, what's not, and what they've done, we want to gather in this section. I would like to see these two sections in our student marketing plans really become more efficient, more effective. If you look at several of the student plans, do not look at those plans for examples of what yours should look like. We need to do a better job because this is critical insight that will really help the direction of our marketing plan. So I'm going to continue to support your improvement in this section, and I mean the financial status, the past marketing efforts in particular. Look at a couple of the samples I've put on that have done a really nice job with it. But again, your job here is everything they've done this last year, we should really have documented for them. So many of you are working internally with the organization already, that should be an easier process. And again, will prove to be a more valuable process because you've got the right information.